Welcome everyone, Jane Cormack here from Rhythm in Colour, and I'm here in Hampstead Heath in London with Jill Purce, and I've just completed a inner sound and voice workshop, which was absolutely fantastic. So Jill has kindly taken the time to answer some questions about her work, which is 40 years of teaching in sound and voice and healing through voice. So welcome,
Hello.
Jill.
Yes.
And
Thank you. Yes.
thank you for taking the time.
Mm-hmm.
So 40 years of experience is a very, very long time.
Indeed, it is.
Very in-depth experience. Can you tell us how you got into this work and why you began it?
Well, when I started, there wasn't nothing. There were no workshops or voice workshops or anything of this kind, or voice healing or sound healing. And but I realized that there was a real need to reinvigorate, to revivify our voices as a society, because with the more developed we became, the more silent we were going. And I realized, the power of the voice to heal and to bring joy and ecstasy amongst people. So I realized a big need for it. And so the two streams that had come into me, the two sort of lineages were one, the Western art music tradition. My mother was a concert pianist. I was brought up in a house with almost more concert grands than people. And then I was working with the German composer Karl-Heinz Stockhausen from 1971, living and working with him in Germany for about 4 years. And then the other stream that came through was the Tibetan chant tradition. I'd been working with the with many lamas up until this point, and in particular also the Gyuta monks who do this kind of chanting, and then studying Dzogchen. And so from the early 70s I've been studying Tibetan Buddhism and realized the power of chant, and in particular the power of overtone chanting, which is a form of chanting unique to Central Asia. It exists in Tibet, Tuva, which is Siberia, and Mongolia.
And Mongolia's got the well-known chanting where they sing the two notes at the same time.
Yes.
That's Tuva, is
That's Tuva, but also Mongolia.
Oh, okay.
So it's called Humi. And so these three traditions are where it's found.
Mm-hmm.
And Stockhausen was the first person really to do vocal overtones in the West. He wrote a piece in 1968 called Stimmung for 6 singers doing overtones on a single note. And so when I first went to live and work with him in 1971, the first thing we did was to go on tour with Stimmung in North America and East Coast North America and Canada, USA and Canada. And so Stockhausen was very interesting because he pioneered electronic music. He was one of the first people to work with creating sounds out of nothing, simply by sticking bits of tape together and building sound up out of electronic impulses, and working therefore with all the parameters of sound. And so harmonics or overtones or the color of the sound or the quality of the sound or the timbre of the sound, these are all different words for the same thing, is one of the principal parameters of sound that you work with. So these were really the two streams that came through me and really educated me in a very profound way, right from the source. And then I realized that this was something that I realized that this is something that would be a very useful way of bringing people back to working with their voices, because it's not something that most people had ever heard of, ever done. So the overtone chanting has been a perfect way of actually introducing people to the voice who had never sung, or people who had sung, but had no concept of what the voice can actually do for you, or does to you, or what you can do with the voice. So then I realized that this overtone chanting was utterly magical, because firstly it's in tune in a way that Western music is not, because Western music's been tuned since the 17th century out of tune. It's called the well-tempered scale, And so when you listen to classical music, you may think you're listening to music which is in tune, and therefore in training yourself in tune, but actually that's not the case. You're actually being entrained or resonated slightly out of tune with the geometry of yourself, of nature, of the world, and of the universe that we inhabit. And so instead of being sound in mind and body, we're actually being slightly distorted.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very useful for people as a way of really tuning, and it is a way of tuning us, so we can be sound in mind and body. This is really, really important.
So it's a way of connecting us to like nature and other people and just the world around us.
Exactly, through resonance.
To being in resonance with it.
And being internally coherent, coherent with each other, geometrically, sonorously coherent and in tune with the world, with nature and everything, instead of being just slightly out of tune, which we are. So it has that function, but then also it is the most powerful vocal yoga. It's a powerful yogic technique.
I like that term.
It's a real vocal yoga, and because you're really working with the breath, and you're containing it, and you're pushing against it in a very powerful way, and in order to do it, and at the same time, it's so when you do it, you go into very deep states of meditation and come into a very still place, and at the same time, it's a very magical thing to do because you hear the overtones floating, above the fundamental, and I could even demonstrate it for you.
That would be fantastic. So Jill's going to do a demonstration of what overtone chanting actually is, so you at home can get to hear the amazing sound that I've been experiencing all weekend. And do you just want to maybe?
Yes. Well, I've had a cold for some days now, so it may not sound quite like it ought to sound, but anyway. So you can hear the different notes if I just show you. So that's one form of overtone chanting. And what you're doing is you're chanting on a single note, and then what you're doing through resonance, you're allowing the different additional notes which are always present in when you make a note, when you sing a note, when you play a note, when you hear a note normally produced, the note has all these other notes at the same time, and what you're doing is you're selectively amplifying them so that you can hear them floating like bells over the top.
And anyone can learn this. You can teach anybody to do this.
Yes, anyone can do it, and that's one of the reasons why I started doing it, because I realized that anybody could do it. Anybody, meaning people who've been told they can't sing, as well as the great divas who also don't do it, and so it's equally magical for both of them to do.
And what's happening actually when you're doing it? What's the because you talk about how transformative this work is. So, what is happening that creates that transformation?
Well, you're turning your body into a musical instrument of a very powerful, resonant kind, more than when you sing normally.
Yeah. And
because what you're producing is the kind of sort of essence of the resonance. It's a bit like the homeopathy of sound, really. You're working with the most essential aspects of the sound, which are the most powerful. And so you're working with the aura, you're working with the energy body, you're transforming that, and you're getting rid of all the sort of confusions of mind and all the kind of blockages and the things that impinge on our awareness. You're sort of blasting them away, really. And at the same time, it's a really, as I said, it's a very powerful vocal yoga. And so you're able to go into very deep states of meditation also. And it's profoundly healing because you're working with the energy body, and most sickness starts with the energy body. It starts as a disturbance of the thoughts, of emotions, usually, and then those get more and more somatized, more and more into the body, through the energy body, and then finally into the physical body. And so the more energetically you work, and the more you work with the energetic body, the more you make profound changes. If you leave it till it's something very specific, the usual maxim, if in doubt, cut it out, then that's the end of the chain. And by then it's too late to change anything. You're just cutting out the results of the disturbance. So and then the disturbance, could go somewhere else. So what you want to do is to work much more radically, so that you change the disturbance itself, or remove the disturbance itself energetically, and then it doesn't have to find any physical outlet. And so by doing this, you're giving yourself a sort of subtle, sonorous massage, the aura, the auric body, as well as the physical body, which you're transforming through this very powerful sort of breath yoga, sound yoga, and then of course it has a wonderful effect on the voice. Your voice becomes very authentic, very connected, in a way that often our speaking voices, let alone our singing voices, are often we talk very high, or we copy our family, or we think we have to be very vulnerable, like women used to have to be, and this way you really get into your own voice, an authentic expression of your own real self. So it's wonderful for speaking, wonderful for singing, wonderful for meditating, wonderful for healing, wonderful for being in tune, wonderful for creating a sonorous community. I mean, it's just it's a great tool.
Really amazing.
Yeah,
tool.
yeah, yeah.
And how? I mean, you must do this every day. How often is it like yoga, where people go to yoga classes every week or twice a week, or the more that you do it, the more you feel that sense of resonance and connection with the environment and other people?
Absolutely. Yes, the more you do it, the better it is. It's as simple as that, really. So it's good to do it a little bit each day, and really get it to become part of your life. And it's wonderful in nature. The other thing, if I find that if I go into if I'm in nature, and I do this, then a whole sort of herd of cows will come galloping over to me, and can't get near enough. So animals find it completely fascinating. I used to have a cat that, when I did it, she'd clamber up me. Well, clamber is hardly right what cats do, is it? She'd claw her way up me, and then she'd nibble my mouth until I opened it, and then she put her nose right inside my mouth, because she wanted to be inside the sound.
She wanted to feel it.
Yeah, it was amazing. She'd wake up wherever she was. She'd wake up and come over, and I find this with animals altogether. They, sometimes I like to go to the zoo and sort of really connect with a particular animal. My husband and I used to go to the zoo, and we decide which animal on each other's birthdays, which animal we were going to kind of really connect with on a very deep level, and so we really had fun sometimes. And but when you do this kind of chanting, they get really thrilled and excited, and it could be because they hear higher range. Some animals hear much higher ranges, like dogs, than we do, and because the harmonics go on indefinitely, they go out of our range more quickly probably than animals' range. And babies too, they love it too. Sometimes dogs start joining in, they'll sing. Yeah. That happened once actually. I went to stay the weekend with somebody, and I gave them a copy of the CD, and I'd left something behind, so I rang her up and said, did you find my da-di-da? And she said, "Yay, Jill, listen to this." And she had it on in the background. And there it was, the sort of group overtone chanting, and there was the sound, woo, 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 woo. She said he hasn't stopped since I started playing it. Her dog just was singing with it.
So everyone's drawn, everything and everyone is drawn to
really
the sound.
Yeah.
And what would you say to someone that has never done anything with voice before, and that's actually really scared of making sound, scared of being heard? I mean, where do you begin with somebody like that?
Well, I have a lot of people like that, and I would say, come and work with me is what I'd say, because I work with a whole cross section of people, but a lot of people who have been told, the worst thing is, so many people are told as children that they can't sing in tune and to be quiet or mouth it, stand at the back and mouth it. That's the classic one. And I've had so many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the years who've been told this, by either teachers or parents who had absolutely no sense and didn't realise that if you say that to somebody, it's the worst thing you could say, because the last thing they're going to do is to sing. If you tell them that what comes out of their mouth is unacceptable, it's like their soul is unacceptable. It's an unacceptable thing to say. So I've been working with people like this, all the time for years, and it's the best, absolutely the best thing they could possibly do. So come and work with me, if possible. That would be what I suggest. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.